You know, like Close Encounters of the Third Kind. You know that they do the thing with the hand thing. Maybe that, but if they like kidnap me against my own will, shove tubes up my butt or shit in my ear, goo in my mouth, no way, no thanks.
You don't want that.
I'm bouncing. I'm out of there.
And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Welcome to Odd Reality Radio, the show designed to generate thought through entertainment. Join us as we explore the strange and unexplained, the unanswered, and the unbelievable on Odd Reality Radio.
An error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
Welcome to Odd Reality Radio. I'm Ty West.
I'm Joshua Ray.
I'm Jared Black.
And on today's show, we discuss the strange connection between UFOs and nukes on Odd Reality Radio.
Is it true that humans have already discovered a method of destroying humanity? I suppose that really has always been true. You can always beat everybody to death. You can certainly destroy enough of humanity so that only the greatest act of faith can persuade you that what's left will be human.
Today, every inhabitant of this planet must contemplate the day when this planet may no longer be habitable. Weapons of war must be abolished before they abolish us. Never have the nations of the world had so much to lose or so much to gain. Recognizing that this is no longer a Soviet problem or an American problem, but a human problem. Together we shall save our planet, or together we shall perish in its flames.
It isn't the layman that's ignorant, it's everybody that's ignorant. The scientist may know a little patch of something, and if he's a humane and intelligent and curious guy, he'll know a few spots from other people's work. But his condition is the condition of everyone, which is that almost everything that's known to man, he doesn't know anything about at all.
to really tell the story of the UFO involvement with nukes, I think it's appropriate to briefly go over the history of each and how they worked their way into our lives in the many various forms: cinema, literature, war, and even the energy industry. Now, in 1942, the U.S. government began a project researching and developing the first atomic bombs during World War II. This project, led by Major General Leslie Groves of the Army Corps of Engineers and physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer, who was the scientific director of the Los Alamos National Laboratory located in northern New Mexico, which was actually approximately 250 miles from where the first tests were to be carried out. And this first test was carried out, it was an implosion-type bomb named Trinity. Are you guys familiar with the Trinity test?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah?
I know what they are.
Well, the Trinity test took place on July. It was 15th and 16th, but the test itself was executed on the 16th at the Alamogordo, or what some other people might know it as the White Sands Test Range.
Yeah, that's what I've heard it as.
Yeah. Well, are you guys familiar with the other? There's a video of a crash, a UFO crash at the White Sands Test Range.
When did this happen?
I believe it was the 80s, or maybe it was the early 90s.
Was it a bounce?
Yep.
Do you see it?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
It like goes down and looks like a big-ass white cigar.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then it
recall
goes
the
up in the
video.
air and it comes out again like fragments in a bunch of white pieces.
And that was where?
That was the White Sands.
Is it that's a testing facility?
Yes.
Okay.
That's where they tested the atom, like the first atom bombs out there.
Which is Trinity. Yeah. That's
The Manhattan Project.
That's exactly what it is. The Manhattan Project. And the other type of bomb, that was the implosion type bomb that we discussed.
Then they bury it in the ground and then
I believe they lifted it up and then dropped it. If I remember, I just watched a couple of videos on the actual. There's a couple of decent videos on YouTube. Just search it up and you can see plenty of footage of the actual test, the Trinity test. But the other type of test, or the other type of bomb, more specifically, is the gun-type nuclear fission bomb. And this is a uranium-based bomb, and we were so confident after our success with the Trinity and a couple of other nuclear tests that we didn't even bother testing this device until we decided to use it on the city of Hiroshima.
And Nagasaki.
On August 6th and 9th, 1945, which is strange because I was born on August 9th.
Oh, man.
it's pretty eerie, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Soon after we've proven our appetite for destruction, and more specifically this self-destruction, we begin to receive these outside visits from sources that are how outside. Well, on July 8th, 1947, the Roswell Daily Record headlines read, RAAF captures flying saucer on ranch in Roswell region. And we're all somewhat familiar with this infamous Roswell crash incident, which comes on the heels of these rapidly growing nuclear projects and the various tests on empty land as well as on entire cities of people. Now, this is where some people begin to connect that these visitations and this rapidly developing nuclear program may have some sort of correlation.
Believing that once we tested these things and they picked up that signal, realized that the kids found matches. And they're like, oh, we better go check on these
essentially
juveniles.
Yeah. You know,
Make sure they're not destroying Earth over there.
The original, journalistic investigator on the Roswell case, Stanton T. Friedman, who's done all kinds of stuff in ufology now and since, he has basically kind of said that the same thing, the whole dangerous children thing. And that's kind of what other people in the field have, said almost the direct, statement that dangerous children that we are, referring to us being dangerous. And it makes complete sense. We have these nuclear devices, these things that are just, that capable of destroying everything. Why in the hell would we build anything like this in the fucking first place?
And I think
because the Nazis would have if we didn't. That's why.
And what makes us dangerous children is that we have such destructive weapons, and we also have these emotions that run rampant, and we can't control them. Sometimes something happens, and you may hit the button on a different day. You might have thought it through a little bit and didn't hit the button. You know what I mean? It's like,
well, no one knows how to stop a nuclear war once it starts.
I think it's that we don't have control. Our emotions is what makes us dangerous children. If we had control over them, then we would be able to.
Absolutely. But control comes with understanding. Yeah. And understanding comes with, I guess, looking in. And that's not something that our society is built or encouraged to do based on, the way that we've been programmed, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, reports about these UFOs visiting these nuclear test sites began to come in as early as 1950. And some of these at the Los Alamos tests in Alamogordo. And the story goes that on April 17th, 1950, a scientist from the University of California claimed to have observed one of three objects through a telescope, among other scientists at the location. But his specific account, he is said to have seen it move, quote, faster than any known conventional aircraft, end quote. And it was seen for about 20 minutes and put on quite a show, apparently, for these guys. And, anybody that's dealing with Los Alamos is definitely not a dunce or a low-rung scientist by any stretch.
No. But knowing Los Alamos, too, it's entirely possible that it was their own. They could have owned that. What year was it?
It was 1950.
Yeah, I doubt they owned it. But
that's the thing, it all started with what? Kenneth Arnold in 1947, right before the Roswell crash, with his sightings of what he's the one that actually coined the term flying saucer. And he was really just trying to describe the way that a saucer or a rock in some people's interpretations would skip across, a lake.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the term was coined. And the strange thing is that it's kind of taken on a shape of its own. And who's to say that maybe that interpretation didn't lend to what we began to develop? And maybe that interpretation, was more accurate in a literal sense than some people have given it credit for.
Yeah. But, I think it was exactly the shape of a saucer, It's pretty much flying
his descriptions and his drawings.
It's just like flaming chariots in the sky. He's just describing it with words that he knows how to describe something.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. It's stuck.
Absolutely. It's definitely something that, pop culture's taken a hold of it. And
Hollywood and all that shit. Yeah.
We've got all kinds of sci-fi things that have been, interpretations of the Roswell incident, and further than that, we've got worlds and galaxies and universes and entire ideas built on, concepts that came from this incident, or a lot of things came from this incident.
We tried to build our own flying saucer. It had a little, looked like a big saucer, had a cockpit and some jet engines. And it was
like a little hovercraft.
A disaster, yeah.
Right, and didn't have USAF all over it.
I think today we're still trying to build flying saucers.
They sold that to Canadians or whatever. That
really?
For some reason, I swear the History Channel told me that. I don't know. That's what
That's
I
funny.
remember.
That wouldn't surprise you, though. Isn't it in Canada that they have the landing pad as well for UFOs? I think that they actually have the government supplied or set aside funding, legitimate tax funding to build a site, a landing site. And I want to say it's Canada. They built this on basically a landing pad in hopes that a UFO will land here. Just kind of a welcoming,
Oh, nice.
please feel free to land here. You won't be harmed. Kind of a.
It's kind of like the
Canadians are
Nazca
just
lines in Peru.
Bunch of sweethearts.
They built a big ass runway.
Oh yeah, it's a modern Nazca lines, but actually
I guess.
probably not at all like that. I'd say it's more like,
Wipe your feet.
please land here. It's one of those. It's like the hopefuls that we've discussed recently too. The people
Yeah.
that just hope that they get in, abducted, or hope that they have an interaction, or those that crave it. The fanatics, like we talked about within the pop culture in Independence Day, for example, the lady that
Holds up the
knows,
sign
yeah,
and she
exactly.
gets freaking vaporized.
That's exactly the
I know there's
type of person that
Yeah, there's people out there like
comes
that,
to
for sure.
mind for me. And then there
No
are
thanks, man. That's how I feel. Just
no, you wouldn't want an abduction or an incident. What would you leave it at? We'll just go there. What would you leave it at? What would be the most exciting thing that you would want to have happen as far as an interaction with an
dude,
extraterrestrial?
if I saw like a UFO fly over the sky, yeah, that's cool, man. But as soon as it starts approaching, I'm out of there.
But then you wouldn't believe that it was aliens later on because you said that you need 100%, facts. So you'd have to, how are you going to prove that?
No way.
You'll
You'll
always just believe it was
I'm gonna let them fall on my balls,
man-made.
shit like that, dude.
So what would it take for you to believe other than the fondling?
if like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, that they do the thing with the hand thing. Maybe that, but if they like kidnap me against my own will, shove tubes up my butt or shit in my ear, goo in my mouth, no way, no thanks.
You don't want that.
I'm bouncing. I'm out of there. I'm not into being on that shit.
No.
Well, at that point, I don't think you'd have
I don't have no choice
lot
though.
of-
Your description doesn't
decision.
sound very entertaining, not at all. But I would like to see them land and like maybe be off in the forest and see them kind of get out of their ship and roam around. Like, oh shit, look, that's an alien. And then
Dude, that scared the
and not
crap
be
out of me.
yeah. But
right.
I'd
You
wanna
wouldn't
be-
want them to
I wouldn't
know
want to
you
be
were
like
there.
It could be hostile,
I
man.
just want to be a witness to these guys
Right.
doing whatever. And okay, that's an alien. All right, I'm good. That would be my ideal
Yeah.
situation as far as seeing how
See, now,
UFOs and aliens.
It's human nature to like people are afraid of what they don't know. That's
And
just
I sure
human
as hell
nature.
hope I'm not opening myself up here, but I actually wouldn't mind going as far as like I've heard some people's descriptions of being taken, basically on a ride, almost on this like joy ride, almost like it was a helicopter ride at the fair. You pay $15 and go see your neighborhood. Well, if I could do something as far as that, I would love it. But the thing is again, you're not going to be in a whole lot of control with something or someone. I don't know if you can even call it a someone at that point, but it would be intelligent enough that you'd want to refer to it as a someone because it has that almost a personality that you'd be interacting with.
I'm not down with getting on the ship, especially if we don't speak the same language. If I'd be like, I don't know, man. He's just like waving me along.
But dude, what if it was
when you come back, learn some English, bro, and then we'll figure this out. But I'm not getting on your ship, dude.
Well, what if it was like Christopher Lloyd in My Favorite Martian, dude, and he was just in need of spaceship parts and wanted to get back home, and all it was just that weird dude that needed your help and a place to stay.
Yeah, well.
What was the name of that movie with Jeff Goldblum, Jim Carrey, and there was another one, and they were like these aliens in like fur.
Earth girls are easy.
I don't know why, but they seem like nice aliens.
They seem like nice aliens.
That's all I was
okay.
gonna say.
See, that's the type of aliens that I would definitely, if I could get to know, or if they needed a place to, that's the type I wouldn't mind going on a joyride with.
I don't know. I guess I'm not really terrified of them. I mean,
Me neither. That's the point I'm kind of going for.
Necessarily want to jump on the ship and go for a space cruise unless I like hung out with them a couple times. Maybe.
Yeah. Christopher Lloyd, my favorite Martian.
But I don't think we should be afraid of them, to be honest.
No, I don't think at this point that we have any evidence to be afraid or welcoming.
I mean, if every other YouTube clip was like a fake UFO blowing stuff up, but because everyone's fake, all these UFOs are fake.
Yeah.
So, but how come they're never doing like damage? These like fake UFOs aren't just like destroying shit.
And that's
absolutely.
Video I saw the other day of a missile being shot in the air. They're shooting like beams of light at it. They like slow-moed it. I don't know if you're going to talk about that later, but
no. The thing about that video, though, is
it's destroying something that's destructive.
Well,
yeah, that's what it looked like.
That was a dummy warhead in this specific time, but who's to say that it wasn't scanning it? Because the video itself, the clip was so quick, like you said, it could have been scanning it to find out whether it was something that they needed to be concerned about. And if they can move that quick, then that's, again, a highly advanced type of a vehicle or probe or drone, whatever word or device this specific thing is. I don't know.
We don't have a chance in hell if they're going to be like hostile or anything like that with that.
We got to instantly fight them, man. We don't have to instantly fight them. What if they want to just kick it, dude?
Look at where we're at.
Want to burn Jays and chill.
I think
like
our
Paul,
stance,
dude. That's who. You just imagine Paul. Those are the aliens. So they just want to kick it, man.
Yeah, they just want to have a couple of cigarettes, a piece of pie, and a place to stay.
Maybe, eat a human or two every once in a while.
Well, they bring the bird back to life and then they eat that.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's true. But they do like your serotonins and your...
Well, that's another thing that we should get into on another episode is, what they're here for and all of that. And in the sense of abductions, which we have some things that we'll discuss on, like I said, another episode. But with these specific incidents, we've got all kinds of cases of UFOs interacting with the nuclear projects all across the globe, all across America, and even the Soviets had to deal with this. There are reports of Soviet interaction with UFOs and similar situations that kind of mirror ours. As well, on an interesting side note, that the Soviets actually own the largest known explosion, nuclear explosion. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And it is massive. It is, it's disgustingly large. I don't remember the specifics of it, but I think it's like 2 or 3 times the size of the Trinity bomb. And as far as the height and the width of the explosion and the impact and all that, but, they had to deal with that too, as far as the Soviets go. And so this wasn't something that was
just limited to us.
Exactly. It was not specific to the United States and our projects. And, but one of those interesting cases that was involved here in the United States was on June 21st, 1952. Reports of a UFO trespassing in restricted airspace at the Atomic Energy Commission's Oak Ridge Laboratory in Tennessee. The UFO was spotted by multiple sources, including radar and a group of volunteer Corps members, just basically out doing surveillance.
They weren't servicemen or anything like that?
I believe that some of them were. I believe that's what they were. They were just volunteers to basically survey the area and do surveillance or security or whatever.
Is this the one that landed?
No, this is actually, this UFO was pursued by an F-47 aircraft on combat patrol from, it was doing combat patrol and it was up at 10,000 feet and it flew up to 27,000 foot altitude. And during this aerial dogfight with this UFO, it attempted to ram the F-47 on several different occasions before finally flying off.
Almost like it was toying with it.
Right, or maybe sending a message. Because you've got to think of what they're dealing with in this facility, at this Atomic Energy Commission.
So did they end up like shutting down the silos?
Not necessarily at this case, no. That didn't happen at this specific incident, but a lot of these interactions early on seemed more like they were observations. A lot of these were observations, and this one seems more like it was a warning, like it was telling you to some degree.
I see that you have weapons, but I just want to let you know, like, you can't use them against me.
You shouldn't be. You shouldn't be so destructive, or
superior.
You're going to lose. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We're watching you.
Yes, basically, we've got our eyes on you, and we've got capabilities that you assume you have control over, but we're going to prove to you that you don't. And these aerial maneuvers, that's kind of what that said to me.
Dude, they move like 90-degree angles. They go like 6,000 miles per hour. Stop on a dime and then go another direction.
And that's awesome and astonishing in that achievement alone, just the ability to do that. But think about the being inside. They have to control the inertia. As well. So that,
right, but who's to say that they don't have a cockpit that's got some sort of...
of course they do. They have to. Some sort
gyro
of... Gyro
type. Exactly, some sort of...
I think they know how to manipulate gravity.
It has to be its own, like...
Or magnetic.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, I don't want to pretend like I know what I'm talking about, but...
Right, but it seems possible. That's the thing that we're trying to get at.
It's crazy.
It is possible. I mean, if they can do it.
Well, something's doing it. Yeah. That's the point that I'm trying to get at is something is doing this, and like I said, it's trying to get a message across. March 16th, 1967, Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana. This is one of the most famous incidents with nuclear involvement. And there were actually two separate incidents that basically the same thing happened. And the first one is known as Echo Flight. Now, in central Montana, on a Thursday morning, March 16th, 1967, Captain Eric Carlson and First Lieutenant Walt Feigl, the Echo Flight missile combat crew, were below ground in the E-Flight Launch Control Center, or capsule, and the Echo Flight LLC was located between Winifred and Hilger, about 15 miles north of Lewiston. Missile maintenance crews and security teams were camped out at two launch facilities, having performed some work during the previous day and stayed there overnight. During the early morning hours, more than one report came in from the security patrols and maintenance crews that they had seen UFOs. A UFO was reported directly above one of the E-Flight or silos, and it turned out that at least one security policeman was also affected by this encounter, and he never again returned to the missile security duty. Around 8:30 a.m., Feigl, the deputy crew commander, was briefing Carlson, the crew commander, on the flight status when the alarm horn sounded. One of the Minuteman missiles they supervised had gone off alert or become inoperable. It was one of the two sites where maintenance crews had camped out on site. Upset, thinking that the maintenance personnel had failed to notify him, as required by procedure when maintenance work is done on a missile, that the missile was going off alert status, Feigl immediately called the missile site. When he spoke with the on-site security guard, he reported that they had not yet performed any maintenance that morning, He also stated that a UFO had been hovering over the site. Feigl recalls thinking that the guard must have been drinking or something. However, now other missiles started to go off alert in rapid succession, and within seconds, the entire flight of 10 ICBMs was down.
So this was happening while there were UFOs out in the sky just flying around this thing.
Yes. Well, at this point, as far as I can read, it was just one.
Now, did that Tennessee story happen before this?
Yes, it did.
So that's
to me, my
I'm
point.
thinking,
Is
like,
it seemed like it was sending a message
they were just
initially.
fucking around with the aircraft that time, and this time they were like, "Oh, we can get in your technology and just shut it down remotely."
Again, it's sending a more powerful, or at least a stronger message. Now,
very, very interesting.
All of their missiles reported a no-go condition. One by one, across the board, each missile had become inoperable. When the checklist procedure had been completed for each missile site, it was discovered that each of the missiles had gone off alert status due to a guidance and control system fault. Power had not been lost to the sites. The missiles simply were not operable because, for some unexplainable reason, each of their guidance and control systems had malfunctioned. Because, with this kind of equipment, that shit just happens. I mean, our smartphones, they may have an app that causes your Pandora to crash or whatever and drains your battery when you're not using it. But these, I mean, same thing happens here or back in 1967.
An EMP blast. That disables electronics.
And that's something that's easily, understood.
But we would be able to detect something like that.
That would wipe out the whole thing, not just...
Exactly. Not specific to these missiles.
It sounded like they were isolating the guidance system.
Yeah, exactly.
They shut that down.
Consider, it started with one.
That's another
It started with one.
We don't just shut it down. We can control. We could launch them if we wanted to. Someone's saying that. Like,
you said it started with
all of this.
That's like a sign of intelligence right there, just one at a time.
It started with one. And then it ended up being the rest of all of them. Every last one of them. And what's strange is that later on, 2 security alert teams were dispatched from Echo to those sites where the maintenance crews were present. And Feigl had not informed the strike teams that one of the on-site guards had reported a UFO. On arrival at the launch facilities, the security alert teams reported back that the UFO had been hovering over each of the 2 sites by all of the maintenance and security personnel present at each site. So everybody was witness, and everybody claimed to see the same thing. That's even more credibility.
That's pretty compelling, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't an isolated incident with just 1 or 2 individuals who say something and their stories are similar but have, interesting variations. This is, a group of people that have basically experienced the exact same thing.
And it's not like some big city. This is like at a military installation. So all these guys are trained, professionals.
In central Montana. Absolutely. Yeah. The story goes on. Captain Don Crawford's crew relieved the Echo flight crew later that morning. Crawford recalls that both Carlson and Feigl were still visibly shaken by what had occurred. Crawford also recalled that the maintenance crews worked on the missiles the entire day and late into the night during his shift to bring them all back on alert. Not only had the missiles been lost to our deterrent forces, but they had remained out of service for an entire day. Because of this unique incident, as an ex-missileer describes it, all hell broke loose. So that is what is known as Echo Flight, and that took place on March 16th of 1967, and obviously the repairs took place, I would believe, March 17th, the subsequent day. But this is
repairs. They had to repair. There was damages done by the.
Absolutely, like this said, they had crew. The flight crew.
They just have to go flip a breaker.
Was there like electronic damage in the missile, or
I would assume
physical damage?
I would assume that it wouldn't be necessarily physical damage, but it would be more like a conundrum within
fried motherboard, circuit
maybe
boards,
a chip or two was
something.
fried, or was thrown off. And
But that's like EMP style thinking. We don't. I mean, that's like,
again, they're not going to tell us what happened because they don't want it to happen again.
Yeah.
That's not going to be something that's going to be public knowledge
Yeah.
because it may lead to other ideas down the road. And they may not know what the hell happened to begin with. So the way that they reversed it, or at least got it back online, they may not know what caused it in the first place, and
could have been like
and
just
not know how to
hacked.
explain how they got it
Happened
back
in
in.
the late
Basically,
60s?
just got hacked
The
and
late
then had to
60s?
reboot
Yeah.
the system. So
Yes.
and that
Exactly.
was, just got hacked.
Exactly. But
there was UFOs flying around there. So
And they hacked.
exactly by
Yeah, they hacked.
something
Just
out of this
to
world.
simplify it, basically
Yeah.
that's what happened. They took over control of their network and their computers and whatever, and didn't allow them to do what they wanted to do with them,
Well, luckily for
or
this,
prevented them from even
now,
using it as a possibility.
why would you think they do that?
I-
On like just a more broad scale, I guess. Like why?
what, the aliens?
Why would they do that? Just as to make make their presence known.
Like I said earlier, with
make a
this whole
statement.
dogfight, that it began to ram or attempt to aggressively come at that original jet. I think it's sending a message, man. I think it's saying what you think you're doing isn't going to happen if you try to reach that far. We're going to show you when, if at all, this is going to be used. That's the message that it's sending to me, at least.
Like, don't cross this line or else you'll suffer the consequences.
Was there supposed to be some nuclear tests in space?
They did test nuclear weapons in space.
Was there supposed to be nuclear weapons testing in space?
I don't know. And, with them they tested nukes everywhere, though.
Because I think
The Soviets
that was
did
like
tests
the
in the
intention.
atmosphere.
And I think that may be the reason, is if there was intentions of blowing these things up in space, and then they were like, hey, that's where we draw the line. You guys can
That's something that we should
murder
definitely
yourselves all you want, but
look into, or have our listeners look into, and send us some feedback at info@oddrealityradio.com.
But I also think that I think they could just be saying, look, man, you don't need these. All you're going to do is destroy yourself with them. It's not like they really have to send a message of power or superiority. I mean, that's one way to do it, but you could also just go blow some stuff up if you wanted to let them know you ran stuff.
Well, and I don't think it's so much about power or superiority, but sending a message of what we should be doing with ourselves.
Mm-hmm,
I think that they're sending us a directional message. Yeah. There's no point.
You don't need these type of message, not more so than I'm superior.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the way that I see it. Well, luckily for this specific flight facility, they weren't done with this type of interaction or visitation, if you will. And shortly after this, just 8 days later, on March 24th, 1967, the Oscar Flight incident happened. And the Oscar Flight Launch Command Center was located a mile or two south of the town of Roy, about 20 miles southeast of the Echo Flight Launch Command Center. So this is a different facility altogether, but within a stone's throw of the first one, and 8 days later. The following is told by Robert Solace, who is the commander, on the O flight that morning. My recollection is that I was on duty as the Deputy Missile Combat Crew Commander below ground in the Launch Command Center during the morning hours of the 16th of March, 1967. Outside, above the subterranean LCC capsule, it was a typical clear, cold Montana night sky. There was a few inches of snow on the ground. Where we were, there were no city lights to detract from the spectacular array of stars, and it was not uncommon to see shooting stars. Montana isn't called Big Sky Country for no reason. And airmen on duty, topside, probably spent some of their time outside looking up at the stars. It was one of those airmen who first saw what had appeared to be a star begin to zigzag across the sky. Then he saw another do the same thing. And at this time it was larger and closer. He asked his flight security controller in charge of the Launch Control Center site security to come and take a look. They both stood there watching the lights streak directly above them, stop, change directions at high speed, and return overhead. The NCO ran into the building and phoned me at the station of the underground capsule. He reported to me that they had been seeing lights making strange maneuvers over the facility, and that they weren't aircraft. I replied, quote, "Great. You just keep watching them and let me know if they get any closer," end quote. I did not take this report seriously and directed him to report back if anything more significant happened. At the time, I believed this first call to be a joke. Still, that sort of behavior was definitely out of character for any air security policeman whose communications with us were usually very professional. A few minutes later, the security NCO called again. This time, he was clearly frightened and he was shouting, "Sir, there's one hovering outside the front gate." One what? "A UFO. It's just sitting there. We're all just looking at it. What do you want us to do?" What? What does it look like? "I can't really describe it. It's glowing red. What are we supposed to do?" "Make sure the site is secure and I'll phone the command post." "Sir, I have to go now. One of the guys just got injured." Before I could ask about the injury, he was off the line. I immediately went over to my commander, Lieutenant Fred Mywald, who was on a scheduled sleep period. I woke him and began to brief him about the phone calls and about what was going on topside. In the middle of his conversation, we both heard the first alarm klaxon resound through the confined space of the capsule, and both immediately looked over at the panel of the annunciator lights at the command station. A no-go light and 2 red security lights were lit, indicating problems at one of the missile sites. Fred jumped up to query the system and determine the cause of the problem. Before he could do so, another alarm went off at another site. Then another and another simultaneously. Within a few seconds, we had lost 6 to 8 missiles to a no-go, inoperable condition. After reporting this incident to the command post, I phoned my security guard. He said that the man who had approached the UFO had not been injured seriously, but was being evacuated by helicopter to the base. Once topside, I spoke directly with the security guard about the UFOs. He had added that the UFO had a red glow and appeared to be a saucer shape. He repeated that it had been immediately outside the front gate and hovering silently. When we were not relieved by our scheduled replacement crew later that morning, the missiles still had not been brought online by the on-site maintenance teams.
So this is all, how many years apart are these events?
How many years apart from the one we just described?
Yeah.
8 days.
So okay.
This was 8 days later, I think. What he's talking about.
20 miles apart.
And then what? The one before that, there was 3. We've talked about, this is the third one, right?
The one in Tennessee, the Malmsteen one, and this, the one he's talking about now.
What was the first one? The
1952.
And when did we drop the 49?
1945.
45.
Was when we dropped the bombs.
So it basically took them, what?
5 years of warnings?
Yeah, basically.
Roughly?
Huh.
Yeah.
And then, so there's these 3 events. First one was when? 52?
1950. It was the very
50.
first one with the Los Alamos, where it had a UFO come out and just do a couple of maneuvers, basically letting their presence be known. Then in 1952 in Tennessee, we had the UFO dogfight, where it basically said, I can do this. Check it out. And then, subsequently, we've had a couple of other incidents along the way. I mean, there were incidents in between this 1952 dogfight and the 1967 Malmstrom Incident. There was probably a dozen different incidents. I just, I didn't report on them because they were, kind of like our first story, which was more of just putting on a show thing.
And since then, we haven't used them. Since we basically dropped them on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and then several years later, we've had
we
ET
messed around.
contact coming in and saying, look, we can shut down your nuclear weapons.
Right. We messed around a little bit until the early 70s, I believe. But
who else did we bomb?
That we didn't bomb
That's
anyone
what I'm
else is the point. I mean, we continued to do testing, and even further, like I said earlier, with the Soviets, they did testing, I believe, even longer than we did. At least active tests.
So I guess their message wasn't received, or was it? We haven't blown anybody else up with it, but we still continue to use it.
No, I think we continue to use it as a threat, and now we're dipping into. And I think maybe who's to say that's not the evolution of biological weapons? Maybe that we've gotten a warning with this whole nuclear thing that we've had to decide to evolve our own means of mass destruction of our own people.
Like, look, we don't care if you kill yourself. Just kill yourself and not the planet.
Right.
So let's target just the humans.
Yeah.
It will help you there.
So the sarin gas, the things that'll go away fast. Yeah, that kind of shit. And again, that's kind of a morbid perspective or outlook or possibility, but this is Odd Reality Radio, and everything about it is odd and potentially a reality in this case. And a lot of this is a reality.
Yeah.
For Robert Solace, this is a reality that he's, written books on or helped contribute to documentaries and other things. I mean, he talks all the time on this incident. He believes that there's UFO involvement. He believes that this is extraterrestrials basically saying, using these incidents as a warning, like we've discussed.
And that's it. He doesn't go any further. Doesn't say, well, yeah,
he goes further, much further. I mean, this guy's done, 2-hour interviews, and he's not really shy with his impressions and his, his perspective on the whole thing.
Contact or no?
Absolutely.
So he believes that we've had contact, the military works with them, blah, 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 blah. What?
I don't know his whole perspective. I've done most of the research on the incidents themselves, but I don't know exactly everything about Solace, but it's out there. And if you're interested, go ahead. And he's an approachable person. And that's one thing is after looking into this, I've noticed that he's definitely somebody that would be a potential interview in the future. And if we can get a hold of him, I think it would be an interesting thing. And these are questions that you may want to, incubate for his interview.
So he specifically was looking at these cases and cases like this where they're interacting with our nuclear.
Absolutely. He's working directly with a man by the name of Robert Hastings, who's also a former Air Force individual who has subsequently gone and written books with, like I said, Robert Solace, who has also written a book with another guy himself. So there's plenty of his impressions and his ideas, and yeah, I'm sure that he has the whole the contact perspective. I'd like to think that what he's got out there is, in fact, the information that I read was directly from a website that he runs, Robert Solace. So these reports are coming from his mouth or his sources, which I feel like being a first person in this encounter, a pretty good perspective on what happened, and he's not afraid to share the truth. And like it states in the story, I mean, he didn't originally feel like there was much worry to be warranted. He took it as a joke. He thought it was somebody that had had too much to drink and wanted to play on the radio. Somebody that was going to be, receiving some sort of discipline the following morning. But the only discipline that anyone received was having to stay late to work on the shit that they couldn't figure out why it went down in the first place.
Or just keep your mouth shut about this. This isn't happen.
Well, and that's what's strange is there's a couple of people that were involved with this and other incidents in the area, including the one that was 7 days prior that, or 8 days prior that, they weren't required to be silent about it necessarily. They were allowed to speak to some degree, and so they did. But again, by this point, we've got Hollywood who's got their grasp on it. So
They've made their
what
own
are we going to
story
be
about it.
believing? Because we've got a lot of hoaxes that have been perpetrated by now, because people are starting to notice with the influence of Roswell that there is money that can be made here if you do it right. And unfortunately, hoaxes, after Roswell began to take off, at least with UFOs and the study of it. I mean, but then again, if you think about it, with the study of anything, with an active interest in anything, there's going to be people that are going to negatively take a skeptical perspective on it for the sake of, the same notoriety that the person A took, wanting to be, essentially a rock star of this field or the paranormal field, which the sci-fi and the TV is all, kind of skewed that, or at least people's perspective of what paranormal or esoteric research is. I think that's more with the pop culture.
I'd have to believe them because they're military guys. Why would you make something like that up?
Well, again, I don't necessarily just believe them based on the fact that they're military, but I do think that their background lends some credibility to the story because, again, it doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of bullshit and his story hasn't changed from day one. This guy's story, when he tells it and when he retells it, I've listened to a couple of, 3 to 10 minute clips on the guy, and every single time the story is the same. That's another thing that definitely lends to the credibility of this thing, is that when the story doesn't change, it's hard to call bullshit because you can't really fuck up the truth. And there's not a lot of room for lies, and there's not, I don't know, it's such a strange incident and occurrence that it definitely lends some, some further investigation to be had. And I mean, there was an in-depth investigation, and, people from the government to Boeing were involved as far as I remember. So, and like we said, that these sightings and these incidents didn't stop there. What we've had them happen recently as 2013, as far as I was able to find. I mean, these interactions with these bases they're not something new. They're not something that is going away, and they're not something that, I think we should take lightly. I think we should take their warnings more seriously and start to move away from as much nuclear as we can. Now, what do you think caused these missiles to be shut down, Josh? And why do you think they were shut down?
I think it was probably a coronal mass ejection from the sun that knocked out the guidance systems.
Probably.
And I think that the atmosphere reflected that ejection light, like a aurora borealis type thing, and created the illusion of a UFO hovering over these bases.
Yeah.
At different times in different places, but it doesn't really matter because it's the sun doing it anyway.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't know, man. I think that they showed up and said, "Hey, what's up, man? Don't shoot these. It's a lot nicer without them."
Well, that could be an easy excuse. A solar flare is what shut off these missiles.
Well, yeah, and I think the point that he was trying to make there with that is that that's been the excuse. That's been the that's what the investigation would reveal. If we were to look into that, I'm sure that's the answer that they would come up with.
All around the world.
Well, it's
absolutely
just, people are
these
more
interactions
likely to
have happened.
No coincidence.
No, not at all.
It's more of a inconvenient truth or a reassuring lie.
Yeah.
So it's just take your pick. Really, I think that they're awesome. High five, aliens.
Well, what do you think, Jared?
Man.
What do you think caused these specific things to be shut down? Do you think that it was UFOs involved? I mean, what? And if it was, why do you think they did this?
The atom bomb and the development of the atom bomb.
Yeah.
Since 1945, there has been a lot more frequent UFO, encounters.
Yes.
I think it's highly possible, especially in the 50s and 60s, that they came down here and they realized these are what's causing these big ass explosions that they could probably see from space. You can see a nuclear blast from space, pretty sure.
Absolutely.
And I think they were just making a if they're out there, which I don't see why they wouldn't be, but they're just making a demonstration, like our technology is superior and we can shut down your missiles on a dime.
Absolutely. And like I've kind of reiterated a couple times throughout, I think that they have done this in an effort to educate, in an effort to basically, guide us as those dangerous children by the hand to a safer alternative, or at least to seek a safer alternative. And I think that the main point for me, at least in my opinion, is that we should maybe take this as a hint, we don't need this much destruction, and maybe we shouldn't be fighting everybody so profusely anyway. Maybe we shouldn't have such an aggressive, personality type. I don't know. Maybe that's the modern mentality, but
develop the nuclear bomb.
Do we have an aggressive personality type? You know what I mean? Like, is it you and I?
Well, and unfortunately, when I say we, I use that stupid term as an American encompassment.
But that is what it is, but we go to war. We, are sending our sons, our brothers, or whatever to war, or my daughters too now, I guess. I'm sorry. Women's lib or whatever. But, and we aren't really making that choice. We, as a whole, aren't. Yeah, there's some of us that are like, yeah, let's go kill them, and there's a lot of us that say, why? Should we really do that? But now we're just sitting here already committed to these ideas of somebody else, and we just go along with it. But I don't really think that we would have as much war as we do have if we didn't have these certain specific groups that want war, and then the called governments.
Spearhead mentalities.
And so if they dictate, hey, we're going to war, there's not really much of a we.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you said that, because I used the proverbial we in the sense that we as an American nation, as a whole, which is, like you said, it's an incorrect assessment of what we are. I think that, you go to the store and you see one of the most tatted dudes with a beard, looks like he could be a gnarly biker, and he's going to hold the door for that grandma. What the hell? That doesn't equate with this whole stereotype of what I've been programmed to believe in. I think that you're right there. I think that what we do as a group would be a much different thing than what our perception is being represented as.
Exactly.
Fucking aliens, dude. I think if they wanted to eradicate humanity, they would have done it by now.
Yeah.
It could just be just the Earth could be a petri dish, and we're just the organisms living in that dish.
I think we definitely are.
And they're just watching us develop. And I'm sure along the way they're assisting like through different means. I mean, I would hope not. I'd hope human beings have the tenacity and the ingenuity to figure things out on their own.
Well, like to think of it like that, they're assisting. They might abduct a person here or there, but you're also looking at it like from the perspective of just a regular citizen. Like, you got to go to like NASA and the guys who know what's going on really and
to really know what's fucking going on.
Well, they see these things all the time. Just like you can look at all this footage and they tell you it's this, that, or the other, but NASA footage of shit just zooming by and them talking about Santa Claus and fucking reindeer or whatever. We got Santa over here and they're talking about UFOs or aliens. They don't call them aliens. They say Santa Claus.
I don't know, around Christmas time, you always hear NORAD saying, Santa Claus is...
Well, yeah, but...
is that what you mean? Or?
No, I'm talking about during regular, not Christmas time, just bad example, I guess. But they use different names. They're not going to say, hey, we got E.T., a Martian fucking flying saucer or whatever. They say something else. And then they know, okay, because they used to broadcast that stuff live and people could listen to what these astronauts are talking about. And then they get busted saying stuff and they're like, well, what are they saying?
Yeah.
What do they see? And so
they're definitely seeing a lot more shit than they claim to see.
So,
or they're showing us. They're hiding.
Imagine. So think about it. Okay, this astronaut, he says, hey, I seen these fucking UFOs flying around up there, and he tells somebody, superior officer or whatever, and then that guy says, oh, don't worry about it. There's plenty of that. But so now this guy, the one who witnessed it, told that guy who knows more about what he witnessed. You know what I'm saying? So what does he know? Is there communication between ETs and human beings?
I don't think it's the direct superior over the guy, but it's probably
I know, but that's what I'm trying to explain to you is that chain every time so that person would go to the next person and say so and so, and then he knows more. There's somebody ultimately at the top.
Information from us.
They're ultimately at the top, and who are they communicating with? Are they actually in communication with them? Is there a reason? Is there more going on? Is what I'm saying, dude.
It's possible.
It's not just like maybe they interact with us. Maybe they help us every once in a while. Maybe we're interacting with them all the time.
But I haven't seen any definitive proof of this. It's just all like hearsay, and they show like shit on TV that looks legitimate, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. This is just only here to entertain me because the government does a lot of misinformation. Well, there's something that really happened here that's secretive. Mm-hmm. Then they'll say, we did find a UFO and it's just some fake rubbery looking thing with a third eye,
Yeah.
Like that fucking sci-fi documentary I watched. Mm-hmm. I thought for a minute, that's crazy if there's aliens on the moon with a third eye. But then it looked like rubbery and fake to me. You've seen that shit and I'm thinking like the government probably fucking... They hide that shit,
So
just misinformation.
Are you questioning whether
I'm questioning
ETs exist or intelligent life outside of Earth period exists? Or
you know what? I believe it does, but I haven't seen any definitive proof.
Okay, so
and they haven't really made it super public.
How many UFO pictures have you seen, and how many different videos and have you seen of all these?
I've seen
internet pictures, whatever you want to call it.
That's what they are. They're UFOs. We don't know who's piloting them. We don't know if they're ours. We don't know if they're fucking aliens. So we can talk about it all day. But I think the government knows what's going on, or they don't. But I think they do, and they're not fucking sharing that with us, with the people.
Do. Yeah.
What do you guys think? Have you seen the photographs? I guess it's more accurate feed. The videos of the ones at the space station, the incidents with UFOs docking or linking up to the space station.
No, I haven't seen it.
It's pretty intense. These little, and it's been happening more and more frequently lately. And again, it's not something that's getting shared all the time, but they have the live web feeds and people have been, watching these and creating their own videos subsequently of the evidence that's obvious. Little stuff. One of the videos is of the thing docking literally right up to it, and then it just takes off and it's gone.
Well, I just have to ask, that craft that you were talking about earlier that shot the missile down multiple times and
that made me kind of nervous because that seems like I've never seen a UFO ever do that. So that was like something new to me. Like, that's crazy. I don't think we have that type of technology. So possible, but it's still not enough for me.
Yeah, it's not enough. But so that's what I was getting at, is like, if there's a million pictures, a million witnesses, how many of them have to be honest or have to be the truth for it to be acceptable for you.
What will be acceptable for me is if they come land down in front of the White House or some, like a political, area where the whole world like knows, okay, now we know for sure they're coming down there announcing themselves on a public level.
What if we just, for instance, sorry to interrupt, but what if we simplified and they came to you?
Exactly.
You guys would think I'm fucking crazy. I wouldn't tell anybody. No one would.
I wouldn't think you're fucking crazy.
I wouldn't think you were crazy either.
I know, but that's shit.
Depends on what happened in the circumstance. I mean, I think that the shame has been built in and programmed by
propaganda.
Well, they either look at us. They either look at us like they want to help us, or they look at us like we're little ants. Because we're just feeble and we don't have their type of brain power or a just view on the universe. So they look at us as we're inferior. So
it's possible.
That's kind of my perspective. But there's also, they say there's different, civilizations of these extraterrestrials. And when they see that we're testing nuclear weapons and we've had 2 world wars, look at the human species. All they do is fight each other. That's all we do. We just fight each other. We're distant from each other. We just fight for whatever. And they see that shit. And since, after World War II, that's when UFO sightings became more frequent. And maybe that Roswell shit did happen, but they're hiding it. They say it's weather balloons or whatever, some different anomaly. And
yeah,
you just don't know. Like I said, it's just back to misinformation. They don't want to fucking share the truth, because A, they're going to create a bunch of hysteria, and B, I don't think most people are ready. We still believe in, God. He created the universe, and when that shit ever happens, a lot of religious fanatics are going to be, it's going to rock people's world, because a lot of people.
Is it though? You really think that would happen, or is that something that have you heard that before? Do you think that was told to you? No, seriously, just think about what you said. Do you think that was an original thought, or do you think that that's something that was told to you?
I would say both, because it sounds.
I think it's something that's been told to you, because they say, I've heard it a million times. It sounds
logical to me.
That I understand that, and it does somewhat sound logical, but I really don't think that people are that unprepared for it. Especially now you have the Pope talking about how, extraterrestrial beings are definitely possible. And so you have religious people who have an understanding that the world isn't that small anymore. It's not just here. And they understand we live in a solar system inside of a galaxy.
If you said that shit 100 years ago, though, you'd be...
I understand, but so people understand that, and they understand that the potential for life is pretty possible. Anybody I've ever spoke to says... Yeah, either they don't believe that they, came here or had contact with us. They don't believe in any of that stuff, but they definitely believe that it's possible. So far away that it's really not possible for them, because it's so far away. But in reality, it's just saying, yeah, it's possible. And so people are ready for that, and they can accept it. I truly believe that if they said, yeah, look, the ETs have visited us before, and they've been basically with us our whole history, our whole lives. There's been experiences from, Sumerian beginning, earliest known writing to now. And look, if they wanted to harm us, they would have done it a long damn time ago. I'm pretty sure that puts everybody at ease right there. Like, you know what? You're right. They could have killed us a long time ago since they've been around this long. So I guess there's really not much to fear. It's not that hard to calm people down. Yeah, some people might be like, oh, aliens, but it's like fucking, there's a lot of people that are like, pit bulls. So it's really, I don't think people...
I think there's a lot of fear. People would...
Why? Why does it affect your religion? How come a different life form affects your religion? How come if we discover a new animal in the ocean that everybody says there's no way that thing still exists or even exists at all? But if you discovered something new in the ocean, how would that change your religion? If you discovered a new animal in the jungle, how does that affect your religion? This thing's just another wild beast that's out in space instead of on Earth.
How does that more change? Intelligent than us and can travel through space.
You don't know anything about it other than it's out there in space. Yeah, it's highly intelligent, whatever. That's great. But that doesn't change our religion. How does your religion get affected by discovering a new animal? It's a new animal. It's all it is. It's a new animal, dude.
Man. Human beings are the most intelligent species on this planet.
Yeah, well, we're not the most intelligent life form. I guarantee that, man. I bet dolphins whoop our ass if they could fucking write and had thumbs, dude.
If dolphins had opposing thumbs, I think we'd be fucked.
Yeah, dude.
Well, we'd be more subservient because we'd have a clue. They would, I don't know. I have to agree with you there. I think that at the same time, what if it wasn't like that? What if dolphins were more, diminutive than we would expect? And or for that sake, what if it was like koalas or rhinos that were the most smart? For some fucking reason, their brain works.
What do you mean diminutive?
Best.
What does that mean?
Just like
dominant?
Really dominant, really...
enslave people.
Yeah, I mean... These are
I don't know.
Potentially, I mean, if you gave dolphins thumbs, I'm just saying, what if...
Could be a dangerous place.
I just think it creates so much...
We put lasers on their heads.
I hear pigs are pretty smart too, man.
Yeah, aliens announce themselves, it would create so much fucking hysteria. It'd be crazy. Just our whole...
That's a belief, man.
Would be
That's
different.
A belief. I think it would what was the president who said if we were under attack from
it was Reagan,
from an alien race, then it would unite us as a people.
And that's pretty sad. But that's what it would take. If that's what it would take,
but think about
humanity to unite against a common foe. When all these years we fight each other.
Look at the common foes that we're all fighting right now. Ebola, yeah, fucking that. That's what we're fighting. That's a common foe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the same thing, but that's something that we know is destructive. That's something that we know it does have that malicious intention. Not that it has an intelligence of its own, but if it did, I mean, I don't know. It's evolving, so it has to have some intelligence.
I don't know,
but to what degree? And who's I don't know. I'm just saying that.
Well, that's my problem.
But my point is we're not banding together. Unfortunately, in the way that I would like to think that we would with an alien disclosure. I'm in between both of the points of view. I think, there's a potential for each side to happen, but at the same time, with evidence that we have at hand with Ebola, with finding new fucking creatures all the time in the ocean and on the land, for that matter. At the LA fucking airport, we find a new lizard salamander thing on an abandoned runway just years ago. I mean, we're still finding shit. So Bigfoot's potential is out there for fucking real.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And who's to say that that's not an interdimensional thing? And then there's more potentials that we're not reaching, that we have capability, but it's not something that we actively pursue. And
most people lack the intellect to understand dimensions and shit like that.
I think we don't.
It's all theory.
We don't tap into the passion.
We're not
and we don't
much more than
we don't feed our souls
basic math and reading and writing. So it's
almost like they fucking did that shit on purpose, dude.
Almost,
almost, or exactly.
I mean, I've lived on.
Unfortunately,
I feel like they kind of just throw you in the meat grinder, and if you survive that.
But I do want to say that
we'll go back to UFOs.
The scenario that you were talking about, as far as the panic, I think that it really depends on who controls the situation. So if the government, this is a scenario that's been thrown out in the conspiracy world for a long time, that they're going to use UFOs, or what they've reverse engineered and created some sort of flying saucer that's alien-like to us, the common people. Like, what the fuck? It looks like magic or something.
Yeah.
And then they would fly it over and they'd blow up a building or something, and then they would say, we're under attack from aliens, and and then that would be a way that they would manipulate people into needing them more for protection, the government. So you always have to have a threat, just like we have to have a boogeyman. There's always got to be a boogeyman for them to keep control over us. So that's kind of like the final boogeyman in the way that I look at the way that they use their cards, I should say. And so it could happen any way. If they control the scenario, then yeah, it's most likely going to be chaos and fear, because shit will get blown up, people will die, and things like that. But if it was a real legitimate alien, I think, what's the way, interaction or
threat?
No, just like so they announce themselves. Hey, they show up, the mothership shows up, they freaking, hey, we're here. Yeah, that would freak people out, But if we've been communicating with them, for this long, whatever. I think if you had slowly acclimated people to the idea. So look, people, we've had ET contact. Well, we continue to have ET contact, for a week or two, maybe even 3, 4, 5 months, and then say, hey, look, we're going to introduce you guys to them. Like, I think you could slowly do it. I'm just thinking on the fly here, really. I haven't thought this through, but I mean, I think you could acclimate people to the idea and introduce them. I mean, there's a lot of things that we've had to overcome as people, things that would never happen.
Nothing like this, though, what you're talking about.
No, it's nothing on the extreme level of it, but if you look at, I know this is a horrible thing to look at, but race, and a lot of people, it's still strong today.
Well, that would come into it, too, with the...
Exactly.
With the aliens.
So look, blacks and whites particularly, obviously, they didn't work out very well in the past, and so...
But do you think the potential of black and whites that hated each other to begin with coming together to hate this alien race is also a potential? Strange as it may seem.
That's I guess if you...
I mean,
who controls the narrative, I think, is...
Exactly,
because... But it all boils down to...
We're not going to be able to do anything.
But what narrative? Because we've got, like we've discussed in many different formats of conversation, we've got, we've got the narrative, the main narrative that's controlled by, X, group X, and insert name here. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the sub narratives, and then sub narratives to that. And this could be the major companies. And then from the major companies, it goes to the religions. And then from the religions, it goes to the corporations. And then from the corporations, it goes to the bosses. And then from those bosses down to the fucking feeders and the consumers and the slaves of the that's your narrative. Everyone has a narrative all the way up. And so it's a matter of where you're dipping from, what pool, what narrative are you getting? Because subjectively from different demographics around the world, you're going to be getting basically the same narrative. It's just going to taste a little different. Mine's going to have curry, and his is going to have fucking nutmeg, and yours is probably just going to have thyme.
I don't really like nutmeg. That sounds bad. Like a nutmeg?
Thyme, like T-Y-M-E or something?
Yeah.
No, dude, I'm not down with nutmeg, bro.
See, bay leaves. We're going to give this guy bay leaves because he's way more into that. Or basil because it's good on his tummy.
Thank you.
What would humanity, how would we react if we knew, like, for sure that we're not alone? That's the question.
Dude, I know for sure. That's the way I feel about it. Like, that's just how I feel about it. Like, have I seen an ET? No. But I just know there's no way that it's just us.
If it was just one ship that landed in one certain part of the world, it wouldn't be scary. But if there was like hundreds of them, all working together, I can't think of a fancy word for team, but if they were working as a team together, like fucking Independence Day, where they were tactically going to each city, I'd be a little nervous because that's like a military maneuver to me.
Yeah, who wouldn't be nervous about that? Yeah, I think that...
It'd be kind of like a preemptive strike of aggression,
Yeah, I just think that with as much history that there is of potential alien races assisting or doing, all kinds of things can be either misconstrued as UFOs or...
right now,
angels and Jesus and all these different like biblical ways of describing UFOs basically You know,
That's what trips me out, man, because
and then you have like Egyptian artwork or whatever the
but it could really be
UFOs. Exactly. But then
they call it angels because that's the only way that's how they perceive it.
Exactly. So you have this throughout history. You know, there's always been some form of they came from heaven and they helped us.
So now it makes us think on a religious standpoint, does God even exist? Because back in the Bible, chariots of fire, all that shit, that, there's supposed to be someone on a chariot of fire or whatever, and it's actually a UFO.
Yeah.
That scares me.
So that affects your God?
That like makes me question, is there really a God? Or are we all just here alone? Like,
why couldn't God create them too, though?
Why couldn't God coexist?
Why couldn't God create
I would hope so.
All of that?
I would hope so.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how does it affect it? Because I just think that, like, look at religion grows as people grow, as knowledge, as our understanding, our awareness of things grow. So does the religions, they change with the culture of people. Like, if people like black people, the religions like black people. So it's just, they're just the crutch, dude, for most people. But I think that there really is a God of some sort.
I hope so.
But I don't think that
dangerous waters for some people.
I don't think religion has even close to the answer. They just have they have good ways of guiding you through life. But as far as like really understanding who you are, what you are, why you are, all that shit, you're not going to find that in any religion, man. Really, I don't think you will.
No
because if that was the case, everybody would already be like happy and there would be some sort of utopia here because religions have been around for a long time. And if they had the fucking answers, we'd probably have a little bit better place to live. I just don't think that they have any of the answers. They just have some great philosophy.
One of the things that continues to lend to my separation with the whole possibility of religion being the way is that all of these things seem to want to all, in their own way, want to blanket everything under one creator, one God. Well, just like, what if these other creations have their own beliefs, their own God, their own religious structure, or not? And what if they have a different, firm understanding of their origins because they've had access to their legitimate history? They haven't had some diluted version that's been bastardized to accompany some agenda along the way. And then how many times can this thing be diluted before you're just getting bullshit, complete and total bullshit?
What struck me, what you were saying was how if these extraterrestrials come to Earth, they may have their own religion, if you will, and us believe in God. They might not, like, what the hell is this? They'll just destroy that.
Zap us.
That's possible. That's not what you're trying to say. That's what I got out of
That's not necessarily what I'm trying to say, but again, there's more possibility in that too.
I don't know.
Look at what we're dealing with here. Who's to say? But again, if they're that capable of intergalactic travel, they've probably been through some shit. And I don't think that destruction is the shit that they're continuing to be through. I don't think that that's intentional
They've existed for millions of years. We've only been alive for, I don't know.
Just trying to look at it in the perspective of like nature and the way that animals interact with each other. Like, there's not a species that just totally wipes out another species in nature. They kind of just take one or two.
Chances are that'll be the same.
It's a balance. All together, there's some sort of balance there, right? And I can't dial it in exactly, but somehow it works out, good and bad. And then you have both in space.
Do you think God created religion, or excuse me, evolution? Did God create evolution? Because I think that seems
like intelligent design kind of thinking. I guess I don't know.
Because I don't know. I always try in my mind to blend science and religion into one. A lot of people don't understand it. I guess.
I think
maybe it's impossible, but so why can't we just have the best of both worlds? Because religion is...
Because they contradict each other.
I don't think they do so much.
Well, religion has a structure of beliefs where science has a structure of fact, of quantification. That's the separation. And you can't have this guy's version of his beliefs that can't be quantified because this guy needs a fucking quantification. So that's where I see there's a separation, at least on an individual level. I mean, as far as the basis,
but who created the process of evolution?
And the message?
What created that? And that's where, to me, religion or God, let's just say that comes into play. Because we understand how evolution works, but we don't know how to replicate it, or we don't know how it starts, or where it comes from. That's my fucking question. And maybe those extraterrestrials have the answer. Who knows? I would imagine they would.
So then you shouldn't be afraid of them. You should be hopeful that they can provide you with the knowledge
and
that you
here's
seek.
a great example of that is Star Trek First Contact. The Vulcans come and visit Earth right after a Third World War, and they say, you know what, humans, there's a better way. We're going to teach you how to travel through the speed of light. You know, and I don't know. I thought that's very profound to me. But there's also, hopefully, you know, worst case scenario is they come and they conquer us, enslave us, or they exterminate humanity and just harvest the planet, move on like Independence Day. But I think the latter will be the real case. I think that's more probable.
No,
I think that'll
just
happen.
mine Earth.
No. The latter. Excuse me, not the latter. The first thing I said before, where they come and they try to help us. You know, they see that you're going the wrong way here. You guys need to take care of yourself. Get rid of all this greed and corruption.
Well,
get rid of money. You know, let's have like a prestige system, because that's what they did in Star Trek. Gene Roddenberry was.
So let's think on Star Trek guidelines.
Yeah, I guess so.
So let's. Seriously, I like the thinking, because you can go to the rules, the intergalactic laws of interacting with
directive.
Yeah, stuff like that. Like, think about it though. If there really are,
it makes sense.
If there are these advanced civilizations that have been around for millions and millions of years, they've bumped into each other before and probably have hubs and in places where they trade and things like that. Maybe it's all reality. And I'm sure there's established rules of fucking with societies and fucking with planets and rule. You know, like I'm sure there's some. Maybe they slap you on the wrist. I don't know, but there's probably got to be a harsh penalty for blowing up a planet or taking advantage of all its
resources,
naive citizens, and resources and whatever. You know, there's probably some kind of rules about that shit. Let's go with that for an optimistic viewpoint.
Very interesting stuff that I think could possibly happen. Maybe not in my lifetime, but if they did come and visit us, they would try to help us. And that might be the second coming of Christ. You know, that might be an analogy of that, because I've heard that growing up my whole life, because I grew up LDS, you know, Christ is coming again. He's already came once. He's coming again. And maybe that could be, analogous to aliens coming. Or hopefully maybe if Christ does come back, that's like against all things natural, because when you die, you don't come back to life.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, going off into the Bible now, and
he supposedly did it once, so might as well. You know,
and it kind of gets me, irked up a little bit, because like you hear this your whole life, and after a while, you start to believe in it.
That's all you need to believe in it, right? That's the most important part. What's the most important part? You have to believe that he died on the cross and was resurrected.
I just don't know. You see, some people they'll be like, You're wrong. That really did happen.
Dude,
Maybe it did.
Christ is an alien. He's not from here, right? He's an earthling, but he's from heaven, so he's an extraterrestrial. He's not from here. He was born to a virgin mother who was most likely abducted, mind wiped, and impregnated, brought back, and then
that's some crazy shit you're saying right there.
And then you have or a virgin girl with a baby inside.
See,
magic of UFO technology.
Some people that would just go crazy. Like, dude, that is the craziest shit I've ever heard. That I refuse to believe that. I'm not saying me personally, but because they've been taught that so.
It's a theory. No, but you've heard of other theories of people being abducted and impregnated, and why wouldn't it happen then? Like, these stories are happening now.
Maybe these aliens their gene pool.
Well, there's all kinds of theories, man. they're them. That we are
We're
them
opening the lens
from
of
the future.
Yeah, time travel concept. God damn it.
And
We're looking through the different lens of possibility here.
exactly, that's for sure. There's multiple lenses.
I want the fucking glory lens.
The glory lens.
Glory lens.
Well, on that note, I think that we should all continue to investigate life through the lens of possibility. I'm Ty West.
I'm Joshua Ray.
I'm Jared Black.
Take care.
Peace.
Laters.
who knows? Like, I really do think that we, maybe not like third eye making shit float, but like technology and things that can be mixed together. So like maybe there's a magic concoction with mercury and wheat and, you know, cinnamon, and it has anti-gravitational properties.
Right.
And we just don't know about that. And so now they're putting cinnamon butter shit on these bricks and making them kind of float because it has I mean, who knows? But to say it's aliens before you look at every other possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, it is really, really plausible because of, I believe, the pyramids and all that shit. Let's get to the show, man.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Let's
I'm going
do it.
off.
It's good.
That's how we do this.
I might just listen a lot.
Word. Well, there's only one way to...
Well, I was going to
to-
say human beings, and they have enough ingenuity to invent their own things on their own.
But that's, necessity is the mother of all creation, dude. Every time you think of something like, I really wish we had one
And
of
that's
those.
all I was really going to say.
Yeah.
Then you could have kept, just keep going. Like, yeah, I think human beings are smart enough to build their own structures and